Welcome to Small Arm Solutions. Today we're going to be looking at, believe it or not, it was a prototype rifle. Armalite, since Mark Westrom came out with his AR-10 in the early 90s, his original rifle was designed around the M14 magazine. A modified M14 magazine. The reason for that was during the ban, there was an extremely short supply of original AR-10 20-round magazines and even fewer of the Knights Armament SR25 magazines. So Mark Westrom wanted to make sure that everybody was able to have a high-capacity magazine. And with a large supply of M14 magazines that were still available, there would be no problem with taking those and converting them to be able to use in his AR-10 rifle. Well, now we want to fast forward into 2004. With the sunset of the assault weapon ban, the SR25 type, early AR-10 type magazines took off. All the manufacturers who were designing new 308 rifles were designing them around that SR25 early AR-10 pattern magazine. And Mark Westrom was the only one making at Armalite the ones for the 7.62 M14 magazine. Well, even though Mark Westrom did believe at the time, and he still does to this day, that the M14 is a much better magazine, the steel magazine, it's more durable, more reliable, lasts longer. There was the question with customers who decided that they wanted to stay with something that was industry standard. With the pure expanding of the SR25 pattern or that AR-10 pattern line, several manufacturers of magazines came up and started making those type of magazines. Most notably Magpul, when they came out with their SR25 AR-10 type magazine. So Armalite, I think, got a lot of pressure from the customers to try to put out a rifle that would utilize the SR25 magazine, so they would have more of a basis for other manufacturers to procure magazines from. So Mark Westrom finally, a few years back, I probably would say around the 2012, 2013, that area in there, he introduced his new AR-10A. The AR-10A, the primary difference is its ability to utilize a standard SR25 AR-10 type magazine. The rifles itself, the upper and lower receivers both had to be modified. With the new rifle being designed for the SR25 AR-10 type magazine, the upper receiver had to be changed because, well, quite frankly, the M14 magazine was longer and it was a little bit thinner. This top upper receiver here, this is the original AR-10, which utilized the M14 magazine. If you notice this area right in here, this was actually a magazine stop to prevent the magazine from being pushed too far up into the upper receiver. And if you notice over here, which is the new SR25 type pattern magazine, that had to be removed. So the actual shape of the magazine well itself had to be changed. So you couldn't just take a an SR25 type lower and throw a standard upper on it. It would work. It would not. You physically have to replace the upper receivers. The lower receivers are not compatible either. There were several changes that need to be made. On top is the original M14 pattern lower receiver, and you can notice the difference in the bolt catch and also difference in the shape between the standard SR25 magazine well and the M14 magazine well. You can definitely see how it comes in curves, then you have the back in here. So again, we had different magazine wells, different bolt catches, so neither one of them were compatible. So if you wanted an SR25 type pattern magazine, you had to go with the specific upper and lower receiver. So looking at the lower receivers, they are totally non-interchangeable. Now, if you had an existing rifle that utilized the M14 magazine and you wanted to switch over to the SR25 type magazine, you could certainly replace the upper and lower receivers with your existing parts. Because again, all the parts from the bolt catch to the rear are the same. Same thing with the front pivot pins. The only thing you have to change is the magazine wells, as well as the magazine releases. Those parts are also not interchangeable. The standard SR25 magazine release assembly will not work with the M14 magazine and vice versa. Showing here are the differences in the magazines. This one here is the original AR-10. This is the converted M14 magazine. Actually, this one's not a converted M14 magazine. This is actually after the sunset of the assault weapon ban, Armalite produced their own but it's still the same pattern. This here is an SR25 pattern magazine. You look on the top, you can see the differences in them. You can see the M14 magazine is a little bit thinner, but it's longer. You can also see the shapes of the rear of the magazine as well. Just shows why it was not compatible. Looking on the back, you can see the spine on the back. The one on the M14 magazine is larger. However, this was designed this way for the lower receiver. The original M14 magazines did not have the spine in the back there at all. But this is the modern, or the current, Armalite produced magazine on the left here. Both hold 20 round magazines. Armalite did introduce a 25 round magazine as well. In the SR25 pattern, this is a 20 round magazine, but you have 25 rounds, and you also have 50 round drums available for it as well. Looking at the receiver, you can see this is serial number 28. This was actually one of the original prototype rifles. Give you a little more background on this one here. Mark Westrom, when he introduced this as an additional option to the AR-10B, which uses his M14 magazine. Well, in the intervening years, Armalite was sold, and the new company has since discontinued the rifles utilizing the M14 magazine in favor of the SR25 type magazine. Another thing that the SR25 magazine allowed you to do was to install the Norgon Ambi bolt catch. Even though I'm right-handed, I still like to use the ambidextrous magazine release. Inside of the receiver, you have the Armalite 2-stage trigger. I do have on here an ambidextrous safety selector. I have added on here the Elcan Spectre optic. It works out very well for this type of a rifle. This rifle here is I won't say it's a match grade rifle. The barrel's not match grade, but the 6 power to 1.5 power I think was very suitable for it. I also did add the mag pull backup sights, front and rear. I like them because they were low profile, and I could put them over underneath the optic. This optic utilizes the arms throw lever mounts, so if this optic was to go down, I'd be able to just release the 2 levers and engage the front and rear sight. Next thing I want to show you is the actual bipod. This bipod is really, really nice. It's manufactured by Bobro. Now this particular one, they don't sell them very often, which is sort of sad, but I understand. This is like a Swiss watch compared to a Harris or any other bipod. Very, very well made. A lot of components compared to the other ones. Bobro actually made a good number of these for JP Enterprises for some of their very high-end SAS rifles. So I was able to get my hands on one. Again, it's a beautiful bipod. Front sight base is actually bolted on, and it does have a section of Mill Standard 1913 rail, but you also have to notice the difference between the height between the handguard and the front sight base. So you need to be sure if you were to put something on there that's going to align properly with the rear. If you notice, I have it on the top of the rail. By having it on the top of the rail, it's on the same plane as the rear, so we have no problem zeroing. And on here is just a basic A2 style compensator. As far as the what's better, the SR25 type pattern or or Westrom's M14 magazine. Looking at the actual mechanics of the magazine and the way the magazines are built, I would have to agree that the M14 magazine is probably a little more durable and a little more reliable. The benefit of the SR25 type pattern magazine is you have a much larger commercial base for it. There's many more manufacturers who make it. Many of these magazines are made out of steel, the SR25 pattern now, rather than aluminum, what the original ones were. So that increases to their reliability. The PMag is legendary as far as its reliability. But it's very hard for me to say, which one is in fact better. Mechanically, they both work. So there's no negatives on either part. With the newer production, say not the conversion magazines, but the actual Armalite produced M14 pattern magazines, they are every bit as good as the SR25. I have several Armalite rifles, and all but one utilize the M14 magazine, which this is that particular one. So if you're looking to buy a rifle, looking to buy a new one right now, this is pretty much your only option, is using the SR25 magazines. But if you were to look for a used rifle or find a new older rifle that utilizes the M14 magazines, I wouldn't hesitate twice about picking it up. You know, I buy 5 or 6 magazines for it, or go to a surplus store and get some M14 magazines and send them to Armalite and get them converted. But you know, either way, you're going to win. Now let's take this out to the range and we'll see how she does. We're now going to put a few rounds to the AR-10A. Some of the neat accessories on here is the Spectre Elcan optic, as well as the Bobro Engineering bipod. This is probably one of the finest quality bipods I've ever seen in my life. It is like a Swiss watch. They're very, very expensive, and that's probably why we don't see too many of them. These were made specifically for JP Enterprises for some of their precision rifles. I was fortunate enough to get my hands on one a while back. I'm not sure what the availability is on them now, but it's an extremely high quality product. I hope you enjoyed this video on the Armalite AR-10A. If you liked the video, please click like and subscribe. Thank you.